Have you ever noticed how the universe sometimes keeps a life-changing truth hidden until the one person who needs to hear it is finally ready to listen? Chosen one, today's message begins with an encounter that your soulmate never saw coming. It wasn't a dream, a sign in the sky, or even a conversation they were looking for. It happened during what seemed like an ordinary moment, when someone from their past unexpectedly mentioned your name. At first, they thought it would be another casual story, another forgotten memory with no real importance. But within a few moments, that conversation revealed a secret about your connection that completely shook everything they believed for so long. The person speaking had unknowingly carried a missing piece of your story for years. They never realized how important it would become, nor did they intend to change anyone's perspective. Yet as they shared what they knew, your soulmate felt something inside them become strangely quiet. There is an old saying that truth does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it whispers so softly that only a prepared heart can hear it. That whisper has now reached your soulmate, and nothing feels the same anymore. For the first time, they are beginning to understand that many of the conclusions they reached about you were built upon incomplete understanding rather than your actual actions. They always believed they knew why certain moments unfolded the way they did. They thought they understood your silence, your decisions, and even the distance that eventually grew between you. But this unexpected revelation has forced them to ask a question they never thought they would ask. What if they had been looking at your story through someone else's unfinished version, instead of the truth you quietly lived every day? As they replay old memories, details that once seemed insignificant begin demanding attention. Conversations they barely remembered now carry hidden meaning. Moments where you chose patience instead of explanation suddenly appear less like emotional distance and more like quiet wisdom. They begin realizing that while they spent years searching for answers in what was said, the real answers had always been hidden inside what you chose not to say. The most shocking part is not that someone from their past revealed a secret. The most shocking part is that the secret confirms something your actions had been trying to communicate all along. Your kindness had never been an act. Your silence had never been indifference. Your consistency had never been coincidence. The truth was always standing in front of them, but it took someone from an entirely different chapter of their life to finally help them recognize it. Now they cannot stop wondering how many beautiful moments were misunderstood simply because they never possessed the complete picture. Stay with me, because as your soulmate begins connecting this newly discovered truth with one forgotten memory after another, they are about to uncover a reality so emotionally powerful that it changes not only the way they remember your connection, but the way they understand your heart forever. Chosen one, ever since that unexpected confession, your soulmate has found themselves trapped in a strange place between memory and truth. They are no longer remembering the past the way they once did. Instead, every memory feels as though someone has quietly removed a veil that had covered it for years. The conversation with that person from their past lasted only a short time, but its impact refuses to fade. It introduced one simple possibility they had never allowed themselves to consider, that perhaps they never truly understood your connection because they were missing a piece of the story from the very beginning. There is an old saying that a mirror cannot reveal the whole sky, only the part standing before it. Looking back now, they realize they spent years judging your relationship through only one reflection, believing it represented the complete truth. But this unexpected revelation has shown them that there was always another side they had never taken the time to see. Suddenly, the certainty they once carried has been replaced with quiet questions. And those questions grow louder with every passing day. As they continue reflecting, ordinary memories begin transforming into something extraordinary. They remember conversations where you responded with unusual patience when frustration would have been understandable. At the time, they assumed you simply had nothing important to say. Today, they wonder whether your silence came from knowing that explaining yourself would change nothing because the conclusions had already been made before you ever spoke. Imagine standing outside a house on a foggy morning. From a distance, every window appears dark and empty. But as the fog slowly lifts, you realize there were lights glowing inside the entire time. The house never changed. Only your ability to see it clearly did. That is exactly what is happening inside your soulmate's heart. The truth shared by someone from their past has become the sunlight dissolving years of emotional fog. They now realize that your actions consistently reflected honesty, while many of the assumptions surrounding you never truly matched the person you revealed through your behavior. The more they compare your actions with the stories they once believed, the more impossible it becomes to ignore the difference. Perhaps you have wondered why assumptions become so powerful. The answer is because assumptions quietly fill the empty spaces where honest conversations should have existed. Once they settle into the mind, every new experience is interpreted through them. Your soulmate now recognizes this painful reality. They understand that instead of allowing your actions to define your character, they often allowed unanswered questions to define it instead. Clouds may hide the mountain, but they never move the mountain, an old proverb reminds us. Those words now describe your heart perfectly. The misunderstandings may have hidden your true intentions for a season, but they never changed who you actually were. Looking back, your soulmate notices something remarkable. No matter how confusing circumstances became, your kindness remained consistent. Your respect remained consistent. Your willingness to avoid unnecessary conflict remained consistent. While the opinions surrounding your connection changed again and again, your character quietly remained the same. That realization has become impossible for them to ignore because truth has a strange way of revealing itself through consistency. Another memory suddenly rises to the surface. They remember a day when they expected you to react emotionally, perhaps to argue, defend yourself, or insist on being understood. Instead, you simply listened, offered a calm response, and allowed the moment to end peacefully. At the time, they interpreted your reaction as emotional distance. Now they see something completely different. They see someone who understood that forcing another person to believe the truth rarely changes a heart that is not yet ready to receive it. Imagine holding a seed in your hand during winter. No matter how much you encourage it to grow, the season is not ready. Only when spring arrives does the seed naturally become what it was always meant to be. Your soulmate now realizes your silence carried that same wisdom. You understood that certain truths cannot be forced. They must be discovered when another soul becomes emotionally prepared to recognize them. That understanding has left them deeply humbled because they now see your patience as strength instead of hesitation. As the confession continues echoing inside them, they begin noticing another pattern that had always existed beneath the surface. Every time confusion surrounded your relationship, your actions consistently pointed toward peace rather than manipulation. Every time misunderstandings appeared, you chose dignity over revenge. Every time disappointment entered your heart, you continued treating others with respect instead of allowing bitterness to define you. Those choices now carry enormous significance because they directly contradict the image they once accepted without question. Imagine reading a book where someone secretly removed several important chapters before handing it to you. The ending would feel confusing, and many of the characters' decisions would seem impossible to understand. Then one day, those missing chapters are returned, and suddenly every page begins making perfect sense. That unexpected confession has become those missing chapters. It has not rewritten your story. It has completed it. The deeper they reflect, the more uncomfortable another realization becomes. They begin questioning how many opportunities they had to understand you directly, but unknowingly chose assumptions instead. They remember moments when you seemed ready to explain yourself, yet the conversation ended before your truth could fully emerge. They remember occasions where your eyes seemed to carry words your voice never spoke. Back then, those moments passed unnoticed. Today, they feel like invitations they never accepted. That awareness brings both sadness and clarity, because they are finally recognizing how easily incomplete information can reshape an entire relationship when honest understanding is delayed. Now, one particular memory refuses to leave their mind. It's not the biggest argument, the happiest day, or the most dramatic event you shared together. It is one quiet conversation that seemed almost forgettable at the time. Yet after hearing this newly revealed secret, that single moment suddenly carries the answer to questions they have held for years. They are beginning to realize that what they once dismissed as an ordinary exchange may have been your heart quietly revealing the truth all along. And as they prepare to revisit that forgotten conversation with completely new eyes, they are about to uncover a realization so powerful that it changes not only the meaning of that moment, but the meaning of your entire connection. Chosen one. There are conversations that seem ordinary while they are happening, yet years later they become the very moment that explains everything. They do not stand out because of dramatic words or unforgettable events. They remain hidden inside memory, waiting for truth to illuminate what the heart could not understand at the time. That is exactly what your soulmate is experiencing now. Ever since someone from their past revealed that long-hidden secret about your connection, one forgotten conversation has returned to their mind again and again. At first, they could not understand why it felt so important. It had been such a simple exchange, lasting only a few minutes, with nothing extraordinary about the words themselves. But now, with this newly discovered truth resting in their heart, every sentence from that conversation feels completely different. There is an old saying that the sunrise does not create the landscape, it simply reveals what was already there. That forgotten conversation has become your soulmate's sunrise. It has not changed your story. It has simply revealed the truth that had been hidden beneath years of misunderstanding. Looking back now, they realize you were quietly trying to express your heart without forcing anyone to believe you. You were never trying to convince them. You were simply hoping that one day understanding would arrive on its own. Imagine reading the same letter twice, once in darkness and once in daylight. The words never change, but their meaning becomes completely different because you can finally see every line clearly. That is exactly what has happened to this memory. Your soulmate remembers the way you spoke that day. They remember how calm your voice remained, even while discussing something that clearly mattered to you. They remember how you paused before answering certain questions, choosing your words carefully instead of reacting emotionally. At the time, they interpreted your calmness as distance. Today, they understand that your calmness came from wisdom. You already sensed that emotions alone would never reveal the truth. You knew that genuine understanding cannot be forced upon another person. It must awaken naturally when the heart becomes ready. That realization has left them speechless, because they now recognize that you are carrying a level of emotional maturity they simply were not prepared to appreciate back. Then perhaps you have wondered why the deepest truths are often overlooked in ordinary moments. The answer is because people usually listen for confirmation of what they already believe, instead of remaining open to discovering something new. Your soulmate now realizes they entered that conversation with conclusions that had already been formed. Instead of hearing your heart, they unknowingly filtered your words through assumptions they had carried for a long time. An echo can never replace the original voice, an old proverb reminds us. Those words now strike deeply because they understand that for too long they listened to echoes created by confusion rather than the quiet honesty that always lived inside your own words. Looking back, they see that your actions consistently supported everything you tried to communicate. Your patience matched your words. Your kindness matched your intentions. Your consistency matched your character. It was never your behavior that created confusion. It was the incomplete picture surrounding it. Another detail from that forgotten conversation suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. They remember a moment when you looked at them with unusual gentleness and said something that seemed almost insignificant at the time. You did not ask them to choose your side. You did not criticize anyone else. Instead, you simply expressed hope that one day everything would make sense without anyone having to prove another person wrong. At that moment, they believed you were simply avoiding confrontation. Now those words carry extraordinary meaning. Imagine a lighthouse standing on a distant shore during a violent storm. The lighthouse does not chase every ship across the sea, trying to convince sailors where safety lies. It simply continues shining because it trusts that those who truly need its light will eventually see it. Your soulmate now realizes your heart worked the same way. You never chased validation. You never begged people to understand you. You remained true to yourself, believing that truth possesses a quiet endurance that eventually reveals itself without force. That realization has humbled them in ways they never expected. As they continue replaying that memory, another painful truth begins unfolding. They recognize how many opportunities they had to ask deeper questions, but never did. They remember moments when your eyes seemed ready to reveal more, yet the conversation moved on before your story had the chance to fully unfold. Imagine standing before a locked door with the key already in your hand, only to walk away, believing the room behind it contained nothing important. Years later, you discover that everything you had been searching for was waiting quietly on the other side. That is exactly how your soulmate now feels. The answers they spent years searching for were never hidden because you refused to share them. They remained hidden because no one paused long enough to ask the questions that truly mattered. This realization has become incredibly emotional because it reminds them that understanding often depends less on speaking and more on listening. With an open heart, now every part of that forgotten conversation fits together with remarkable clarity. The pauses they misunderstood now reveal careful thought. The silence they once questioned now reveals emotional restraint. The kindness they underestimated now reveals extraordinary strength. They begin seeing that you were never trying to protect yourself from the truth. You were trying to protect the relationship from unnecessary conflict. Every word you chose, every sentence you left unfinished, every gentle response came from a place of love rather than fear. They understand that you stepped back not because you lacked feelings, but because you valued peace more than personal victory. That realization changes everything they believed about your connection, because it proves that your heart remained consistent even while circumstances became confusing. As this emotional awakening deepens, one final question refuses to leave them. If this single forgotten conversation held so much truth, how many other moments had they completely misunderstood simply because they never possessed the full story? That question opens the door to an even greater realization. They are beginning to understand that it was never your character that needed to be re-examined. It was the perspective through which they had been viewing you all along. And as every illusion continues falling away, they are about to experience the most profound awakening of all, finally seeing not the version of you shaped by misunderstanding, but the person you had quietly been from the very beginning, waiting patiently for truth to find its rightful place. Chosen one, there are moments when the truth becomes so clear that the heart can no longer protect itself with old excuses. That is the place your soulmate has finally reached. The secret revealed by someone from their past was not simply another missing detail about your connection. It became the key that unlocked years of misunderstanding, and once that door opened, every memory waiting behind it stepped into the light. They are no longer asking whether they misunderstood you. They know they did. What now overwhelms them is realizing just how consistently your actions revealed the person you truly were, while their mind continued holding on to a version of you shaped by incomplete information. There is an old saying that when the morning sun rises, it does not argue with the darkness. It simply reveals what was hidden. That is exactly what has happened inside their heart. The truth has not arrived to embarrass them or punish them. It has simply illuminated the quiet integrity that had always existed within you. Looking back, they now understand that your patience was never hesitation. Your silence was never indifference, and your distance was never a lack of love. Those qualities were expressions of a soul that refused to let confusion change its character. The more they remember, the more impossible it becomes to deny that you remained remarkably consistent even while everything around your connection seemed uncertain. Imagine walking through a museum where every painting has been hanging upside down for years. People admired the colors, guessed at the meanings, and debated the artist's intentions, yet no one realized the paintings had never been viewed correctly. Then one day someone quietly turns each canvas the right way. Instantly, every image makes perfect sense. Nothing about the artwork has changed. Only the perspective has. Your soulmate now feels as though every memory of you has been turned upright for the very first time. They remember the way you listened before speaking, the way you respected boundaries instead of forcing your opinions, and the way you quietly stepped back whenever emotions became too intense. Once they interpreted those qualities as emotional distance, now they recognize them as signs of emotional maturity. They understand that you never tried to control situations or people because you believed genuine love cannot be forced. It must be freely chosen. That realization has deeply humbled them because they now see that while others reacted to circumstances, you consistently responded from your values. Your character remained steady, even when the situation around you did not. Perhaps you have wondered why authentic people are often misunderstood during the most important seasons of their lives. The answer is because authenticity rarely demands attention. It quietly remains itself, while louder voices compete for belief. Your soulmate is finally recognizing that this was always true about you. They think about every time you refused to speak badly about people who disappointed you. They remember how rarely you tried to defend your reputation or convince others to see your side. At the time, they assumed you simply accepted whatever happened. Today, they understand that your silence came from strength, not surrender. The mountain never lowers itself because the clouds refuse to move, an old proverb reminds us. Those words now describe your spirit perfectly. You never changed your values simply because circumstances became difficult. Even when misunderstandings surrounded your name, you continued choosing honesty over manipulation, patience over revenge, and kindness over bitterness. That consistency now shines brighter than any explanation ever could, because actions repeated over time become the clearest expression of truth. Another realization begins settling deeply within them as they revisit the past. They remember moments when they expected you to become defensive, yet instead you remained calm. They remember opportunities where you could have exposed the mistakes of others to protect your own image, but you chose not to. They remember conversations where you quietly accepted being misunderstood rather than creating another painful conflict. Imagine a gardener tending a beautiful garden while people walking by criticize the flowers before they have even bloomed. The gardener does not argue with every passerby. They continue watering the soil because they understand that time will eventually reveal what words cannot. Your soulmate now realizes you loved in exactly that way. You trusted that genuine character would eventually speak for itself. You believed that forcing people to understand you would never create the same lasting truth as allowing life itself to reveal who you really were. That realization has changed the way they define emotional strength. They no longer see strength as winning every disagreement. They see it as remaining true to your values, even when no one fully understands them. As this emotional awakening grows stronger, guilt quietly begins replacing certainty. Not because they intentionally chose to misunderstand you, but because they now recognize how often they judged your heart through borrowed perspectives instead of personal experience. They think about how many opportunities they had to simply trust the consistency of your actions. They remember moments when your kindness should have answered every question, yet unanswered doubts continued speaking louder than the evidence right in front of them. Imagine wearing tinted glasses for so many years that you forget the world has natural colors. When those glasses are finally removed, everything feels almost unbelievable because reality is so much brighter than you imagined. That is exactly how your soulmate now sees you. They are not discovering a new person. They are finally seeing the real person who had been standing before them all along. Every act of compassion, every patient response, every quiet sacrifice now forms a picture so clear that it leaves no room for the old misunderstandings to survive. Now, ordinary memories have become deeply meaningful. A simple smile you once gave now reflects reassurance instead of distance. A peaceful goodbye now reflects emotional wisdom instead of emotional withdrawal. The silence they once questioned now reflects trust instead of avoidance. Every memory has found its proper place because the truth has finally given each one the meaning it deserved from the beginning. They understand that you never built walls around your heart. You simply refused to force open doors that another person was not yet ready to walk through. That quiet respect now feels more powerful than any dramatic declaration of love because it reveals someone who understood that love cannot grow where freedom does not exist. As this awakening reaches its deepest point, when final realization begins emerging above every other thought, they now understand who you truly were, but they are only beginning to realize why you chose to love the way you did. Hidden beneath every act of patience, every moment of silence, and every decision to protect peace was something even greater. Your quiet love was not merely protecting your own heart, it was protecting theirs as well, even during the moments when they did not yet understand it. And as that final truth begins unfolding, they are about to discover that the greatest secret was never what someone from their past revealed. The greatest secret was the extraordinary depth of love you carried without ever asking the world to recognize it. Chosen one, some secrets are revealed to expose lies, while others are revealed to restore truth. The secret that emerged from someone in your soulmate's past was never meant to reopen old wounds. It arrived because the season of misunderstanding had finally come to an end. There is an old saying that truth walks slowly, but it always arrives before the journey is over. Your soulmate now understands the meaning of those words more deeply than ever before. They have reached a place where they no longer measure your connection by the confusion that once surrounded it. Instead, they see something far greater. They see a soul that remained genuine, even while carrying misunderstandings it never created. They see someone who refused to become bitter despite having every reason to protect themselves. Most importantly, they see that your love was never dependent upon being fully understood. It remained consistent because it came from your character, not from other people's opinions. Looking back, they realized that while circumstances constantly changed, one thing never did. Your heart remained patient. Your intentions remained sincere. Your actions remained honest. The truth did not transform you into a better person. It simply allowed your soulmate to finally recognize the person you had quietly been all along. Imagine discovering that the compass you trusted for years had always been slightly pointing in the wrong direction. You still traveled the road. You still reached many destinations. But suddenly, you understand why certain paths never made sense and why some turns filled you with unnecessary confusion. That is exactly how your soulmate feels now. The secret they learned did not erase your past together. It corrected the direction through which they had been viewing it. Every memory now points toward a different conclusion. They remember your calmness during difficult seasons and no longer mistake it for emotional distance. They remember your respectful silence and no longer confuse it with weakness. They remember your willingness to step back and now recognize it as quiet confidence rather than uncertainty. The compass has been corrected, and every chapter of your story finally leads toward the truth that was waiting patiently to be discovered. The stars never move because the traveler loses the path, an old proverb reminds us. Those words now explain your journey perfectly. You never stopped being authentic simply because someone else misunderstood your intentions. You remain steady while waiting for clarity to arrive in its own time. Perhaps you have wondered why the universe sometimes allows misunderstandings to last far longer than we believe they should. The answer is because certain truths must be discovered rather than delivered. If someone had forced this revelation years ago, it might have been rejected before it could truly transform the heart. But now life has prepared your soulmate differently. Through their own experiences, disappointments, and personal growth, they have developed the emotional maturity to recognize what your actions had been communicating from the very beginning. Imagine trying to explain the beauty of sunrise to someone who has never seen the night. The words alone could never create the understanding that one quiet morning eventually brings. Your soulmate has now reached that sunrise. The darkness of uncertainty has slowly disappeared, not because someone argued louder, but because truth patiently waited until the right moment to reveal itself. They finally understand that your consistency was always stronger than the confusion surrounding your name. That realization has become one of the most humbling lessons of their life. Another thought continues, returning to them with increasing intensity. They realize you never allowed misunderstanding to become your identity. Think about how remarkable that truly is. Many people begin reflecting the way they are treated. If they are doubted, they become defensive. If they are judged, they become resentful. If they are misunderstood, they begin changing themselves to satisfy everyone else. But you chose a different path. Imagine a lighthouse standing faithfully beside the ocean. It does not shine differently because some ships fail to notice its light. It does not abandon its purpose because storms temporarily hide it from view. It simply continues shining because its identity is rooted in what it was created to be, not in how others perceive it. Your soulmate now understands that you loved in exactly that way. You remained kind when kindness was overlooked. You remained honest when honesty was questioned. You remained compassionate even when compassion was not immediately returned. That unwavering consistency now amazes them because they finally recognize that your greatest strength was never convincing people of your character. It was quietly living it every single day. As every illusion continues falling away, your soulmate begins revisiting the smallest details with an entirely new heart. They remember the encouragement you offered during difficult seasons, even when you yourself carried unanswered questions. They remember how you respected their space instead of forcing outcomes that were not ready. They remember the moments you celebrated their happiness without expecting anything in return. None of those memories seem ordinary anymore. Each one now feels like another piece of evidence revealing the extraordinary depth of your heart. They are no longer asking whether your love was genuine. They are asking how they ever failed to recognize something so beautifully consistent. Every forgotten conversation, every patient response, and every quiet act of kindness now forms a complete picture that cannot be ignored. They understand that your connection was never defined by the misunderstandings that temporarily surrounded it. It was defined by the quiet truth that continued surviving beneath those misunderstandings until the right season finally uncovered it. So, chosen one, let this final message settle deeply within your spirit. Some secrets destroy trust because they are built on deception. But some secrets rescue love because they reveal the truth that was hidden beneath years of confusion. This revelation from someone in your soulmate's past was never about changing who you were. It was about changing how you were finally seen. The universe allowed the missing piece to appear only when another heart had grown enough to appreciate it, because genuine understanding cannot be rushed before its appointed time. Your soulmate now sees what they could not see before, a soul that remained faithful to kindness, patient in uncertainty, and authentic despite carrying misunderstandings that were never yours to create. They know they can never return to believing the old story because truth has rewritten every memory with remarkable clarity. And perhaps that is the greatest miracle of all. The strongest connections are not those that never experience confusion. They are the ones where truth eventually rises above every illusion, allowing two hearts to finally recognize what heaven had quietly been protecting from the very beginning. Once a soul truly sees another through the light of truth instead of the shadow of assumption, that vision never fades, and the connection is remembered forever with a depth that only truth can create.